What is up, guys? You get NotTheWorst here, bringing another Black Desert online video, and today we are revisiting a spot that had some improvements made to it, and not so recently, but a little over a month or so ago. That has actually increased the profit value for it, and that is the Elvia version of Hexe Sanctuary. So I did cover this video when it first came out, but we did get some updates that actually changed the overall performance of this place, plus just getting better at grinding it and more gear since then. We've got some much higher results with it, so wanted to spend some time going back into it and actually checking it out. As you saw in the title, made over 20 billion silver here in 15 hours. And that is in part to, one, having more gear, like I said, and also what they changed in it. So one of the major differences for this zone is they actually added the ability to get black distortion earrings to drop from here. They only drop from the rift bosses that spawn from time to time, which you see, if you're lucky, an average of 2 per hour, sometimes 0, sometimes 3, you never know. Those bosses also give you an additional buff for 5 minutes that will make you just absolutely massacre the mobs, and also wish that you have 2 rotations available so you can really take advantage of that buff and maximize your trash loot during that time as well. But obviously getting an extra 342 mil drop on it, it does happen, not super frequently, but it happens. But obviously picking that up is going to be pretty valuable, along with the other drops that you're getting. They did also increase drop rate on BMCs there, and kept the crystallized despairs rate drop rate the same. You'll notice that at Quint Hill it was reduced a little bit, so they're somewhat in line with each other as far as the despair drop rates on those. And the Blackstone drop rate was also increased, further increasing your profit value for this zone. So a few little tweaks and changes that juiced it up a little bit, as well as just getting more comfortable with the spot. So being able to perform a little bit better gave us some overall better numbers. So with that said, let's go ahead and get the spreadsheet up and take a look at the breakdown of how we actually did on these hours. All right, so here we have our spreadsheet for the 15 hours that we ran on it. So we did total, like I said, 20.3 billion silver on this amount. That averages out to about 1.35 billion silver per hour, which is kind of crazy when you look back even a year ago, the state of where BDO was then. That's a lot of money. Now, keep in mind the gear for this. I wouldn't really recommend bothering with this place below 305, and I strongly recommend doing that with black stars. Myself, I'm at 313 with triple pen black star. So I can shred through them pretty well. DP wise, it kind of depends on your class there, how they do defensively. I mean, if you don't get hit, then you don't need any DP, right? So it just kind of depends on you, how you play the class and what you're comfortable with doing. I think around the 381 is maybe the starting mark for most classes. From there, you can play around with it, but the guys hit hard. The elites that are here hit very, very hard. And it's aside, not just the exploding skeletons, but the punches from the elite dudes that are there. If you try face tanking those, especially on squishier classes, you're going to have a really bad time. Hexe Marie can kind of be a little goofy with how her AoEs actually work versus where the red circles are, so you need to be aware of that and kind of pay attention. So I would say I recommend like 305, 381, but take it with a grain of salt there. It's going to vary based on your play style and your class. Personally, I was 313, 415, just because that's where my gear is, so it's really easy for me, but I've spent a lot of time here. Trash loot wise, this I can just tell you flat out, like my best ever was actually a 17.2 with no boss spawn. You can see that I've had higher than that, 17.45, but that's with boss spawns included. I believe that was 2 boss spawns. So to me, this is actually better because this was no Hexe Marie, and Hexe Marie drops actually a lot of bonus trash loot as well as a bunch of soulless spawns she increases, and no other boss spawns, so I didn't have the buff at all during this. That's actually like flat out better than a 17.4 with 2 boss spawns, just FYI. That was full sweat mode on these, and after that it's impossible for me to sit there and grind multiple hours like balls to the wall try hard mode. That's just not how I like to do it. So it kind of mellowed out there. So you can see like a everyday kind of chilling average is going to be in the like 15, high 15, mid 16, something like that. And then if you really want to sweat it out, then I'm doing mid 17s or so. I could probably push 18 if the stars aligned as far as boss spawns, along with me actually try harding, but try and get me to do that every single time. So overall ended up averaging about 16.6 with, about 80% of that just chill grinding versus try hard mode grinding. So yeah, around 16 I would say is probably a fair judgment at that gear for just kind of just kind of doing your everyday grind. Scorching Sun Shards, these ended up coming actually kind of worthless now. They were at 17 at the time. They've now completely bottomed out in price, unfortunately, and they don't really sell. So you may want to devalue these like almost entirely, or at least at base price. I would maybe hang on to them just because of how they're sitting. You never know what's going to come up changing with the LV amount and them just sitting on the market with the absolute flood of them that just happened recently. It's not really worth trying to list them, and it could potentially go back up to, the 15, 17 or so area where they were staying pretty steadily before that. Crystallized Despair, at the time I did this, we're at 50 mil. I believe they're down to like 47 or 48 last I looked now, because of course I did this data like 2 weeks ago. Obviously your server is going to vary on that. They cap at 60, which did happen when we got the new update to 4 DP increase on your Alchemy Stone or Vel's Heart. So those did cap out. Maybe your server is still that way, so you just have to check and kind of figure how you would value those personally. BMCs have stayed pretty steadily, about 1.7 there. We averaged 21.6. Distortioneering, so I got 3 of these within 15 hours, 1 every 5 hours. Interestingly enough, after finishing this data, I've had like 6 drop out of the last 12 boss rifts or something, which is way higher than this initial 15 hours. But it was after I was tracking the data, and so it wasn't along with it. But just keep that in mind. It's pretty swingy RNG when those distortion earrings drop, but definitely feels good when they do. So Blackstones, 423.6 was the average. This is a lot of Blackstones to get. If you can also get some boost on your, get some additional drop rate, since I was around 220 to 250 through most of this grind, you could get an absolute insane amount of Blackstones, which definitely helps if you're enhancing constantly, and if not, some bonus money to pick up. Traces, you saw about 33.5 on there, just a little extra money on there. And then Boss Trash, I averaged 700. It just depends on how lucky you are with boss spawns. They either spawn or they don't. The thing about boss spawns though is it will help your trash increase as well. Especially the key to that is if you're higher gear and you're 1-2 shotting once you have that boss buff up. If you have 2 rotations next to you available, it's really nice at that point because you can jump between the 2 and really focus on just burning down the elites instantly, and kind of hopping around that way and really maximize your trash. And that's, when you get into the kind of the full sweat mode type swing of things. As far as overall variance, obviously our highest is going to be one that had a black distortion earring. That's 1.6 billion was our highest, and our lowest being almost 1 billion on the nose, 1.1 right around there. The trash loot there, 17, pretty good, but no boss spawn, as you can see, and it just came out that despairs were low. No distortion earrings. The Scorching Sun Shards are actually fairly high for this zone in general, but RNG is RNG. But to see that kind of swing, 1.1-ish to 1.6 and change, it's not that massive a difference, which is kind of a good thing to see. That means it's fairly consistent, all things considered, your big swing item being black distortion earring. Also to note, you could technically get the 11 or 12 billion silver item to drop off the rift bosses. It is possible. I've never had it happen, and I've probably total grinded here hundreds and hundreds of hours, and I've never had one. I've seen videos of people getting it. It can happen, so that is a possibility. Obviously, it's not on the table. I've never seen one, at least not yet, but we'll keep trying. So anyways, there you have it, kind of a almost 2023 update for the Hexe Sanctuary, at least with the latest changes on here. As far as my feedback on it, this is pretty much my go-to grind spot right now. I'm not really farming for anything specific gear-wise, but when I do grind, this is just where I go to. I've never actually tried trolls just yet. I'll probably get a video on that at some point so we can at least get a comparison to the two. But once you get used to this place and you're comfortable with how all of the mechanics of the blowing up red circles and whatnot work, it's pretty easy to just turn your brain off and grind and make a boatload of money compared to what you could do elsewhere. Obviously, the gear requirement is pretty up there, so you got to keep that in mind. It's not easily accessible. You're not going to hop out of season servers and jump into Hex and just go to town. The mobs take way too long to kill, and that's notable too if you're running like as I mentioned before, I strongly recommend with Black Stars, even at 305, and you're running like Zarka Dandy Kudum, something like that with 305, you're going to see a huge difference between what you're doing and if your buddy's doing the same thing with some Black Star extra monster damage there. It's massive difference for a type of zone like this with mobs as tanky as they are. But nonetheless, not going to complain about 1.3 bill average per hour, and really like the addition of the distortion earrings, just a little more feel good on your RNG from time to time when you see those drop. So there you have it for the video. Be sure to like it if you did enjoy it. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe if you get notifications when new videos do go live. And if you'd like to catch me playing live or doing some of these hours when I'm working on these grind videos, there's a link to my Twitch page in the description down below. Jump on over there, drop a follow so you get notifications for that as well. With that said, that's going to be it for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.